So back in my day, one of the worst things in life growing up was quitting a sport. I'm from Lakeland, Florida, so especially football. But I mean, in Florida in general, most sports, if you quit, it's really frowned upon. So with that being said, the expectation to once you start a sport, I mean, we can talk about other things, creative, school, work, but right now we're talking about sports. And wherever you're from, quitting might mean the same thing, and it might be just as heavy and frowned upon, depending on the environment you grew up in. I'm going to tell y'all a story real quick. It's story time. So story time, story time. All right, so for context, growing up in Lakeland, Florida, I played just about every sport you can think of: basketball, football, baseball, tried soccer, aggressive inline skating, track and field, still got records for that. Respectfully speaking, the only sports that I wasn't good at was baseball and basketball. But with basketball, I ended up making the JV team. I was a role guy, team player, played defense. I used to travel all the time. That's a whole nother story. But I was able to make the JV team play. I had a coach who knew I was going to go to college and play football, who motivated me and pushed me and, just kept my head on straight in basketball. I wasn't the best player, but I did make the team, and I had enough skills to, be out there and do my thing. When it comes to baseball, I want to talk about losing and quitting. Baseball is the only sport in my life that I quit, and that was because of the coach. So I didn't ever quit. I quit baseball, and I don't know how that was. I had to be younger than 10 because the coach he was a well-known coach in Lakeland, Florida. I'm not going to name no names. A lot of people respected him, but he had a coaching style that just didn't mesh with like my style. You got to think, I didn't have a dad. My mom's dropping me off at baseball practice with my grandma. I'm used to playing football. I'm used to playing basketball. I had never played baseball in my life. It was my first time going to try out. And this coach was just so mean and so aggressive. And again, I'm not saying you got to coach how you got to coach. But he made me feel like inferior, and he kept like coaching at me instead of like coaching me up. So when I quit baseball, it wasn't because I wasn't skilled enough, because I probably could have been really good in baseball. I mean, I like to think that speed-wise, hitting, all that stuff, I probably could have been good. But I quit the sport based on the coach and how he made me feel. And I think that was the right decision for me in my life at the time. That situation showed that sometimes you do need to quit. So for me, in the baseball situation, never quit any sport in my life except for baseball. And it wasn't because of the sport and the game and the athletic, abilities that I needed. It was because of how the coach made me feel. So, I just wanted to get that story out the way real quick, when it speaks to quitting, because some people are like, oh, I'll never quit anything, but you never know the situation that you're going to be in. So you just got to take that into context. So in this podcast, I'm going to give you 4 takeaways that you can remember anytime you experience a loss, anytime you take a L, so that you can have that positive mindset to try to get back to whatever you're doing, back to whatever you're chasing, whatever goals you set. Let's jump right into it with the 4 tips. Lesson number 1, can I get better? Anytime you experience a loss, it makes you really have to dig deep and figure out like, okay, I say I'm him, but am I really him? If you don't know what that means, it is what it is. But you never question yourself when you're winning. So you got to really look down deep after you lose. And I know listening to this podcast, if you're driving, if you're in the gym, if you're at the, whatever you're doing, really think about that. After your next loss, think to yourself, can I get better at whatever I'm doing? And if the answer is yes, then you already got a little win, because now you know what you need to do for the next time so that you won't lose again. So all it really comes down to is, as soon as you take that loss, is shifting your mindset and shifting your perspective to try to get back on the attack. You guys know I produce podcasts. Benny Fowler has a podcast. Shout out Benny Fowler, Super Bowl champ. He was doing a podcast with Emmanuel Sanders, another Super Bowl champ. Shout out E. Emmanuel Sanders said on the podcast that when he tore his Achilles, I believe, that soon as he tore it, he knew that he had tore his Achilles tendon. And he said, as soon as it happened, he shifted his mindset to already start attacking the rehab. And Emmanuel, I'm looking at him saying this, and it's like, wait, he tore his Achilles. And in his mind, before he even got carted off the field, he was thinking about how he was going to come back. That's different. You got to be a different type of level of person. You got to be different athletically, mentally, spiritually, to have that kind of grit and get back. So when Emmanuel said that, it just stuck with me. That's why I want to share that with you guys. I'll put a link to Benny's podcast where he spoke about that.
I remember after I tore my Achilles, I saw it as a reason for me to overcome another obstacle. I feel like, when you have goals in life, when you have things set, it makes you grow as a person. And through that Achilles, I really grew as a person. I saw who I am, and I liked the person I saw in the mirror because I didn't waver in that time. I remember sitting at the table and everybody walking up to me telling, right after it happened, I looked up at Coach Joseph and I told him, I said, I just tore my Achilles. He was like, what? I said, I just tore my Achilles. I need to get hopped off. And I remember going to the training room table and, everybody patted me. I said, y'all not going to make me cry. This is nothing, man. I'm going to overcome this. And that was within 10 minutes after I had already switched my mindset to saying, okay, I already know if you can predetermine what everybody's going to say, I already knew everybody's going to say, oh, will he be the same? Oh, will he be that? And I remember Greek walked in and he said, when do you want to have the surgery? I said, ASAP. And I had the surgery at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was already really rehabbing it back probably 2 or 3 days later, already ready and got my mind right. And so just attacking that process, I told myself, in overcoming this obstacle, we got 24 hours in a day. I said, maximize those days. Do not ever look back on the day and say, oh, I didn't give my all on that day. And I did that. And I just stacked the days and I stacked the days and I stacked the days. And I feel like I came back stronger than ever because my mindset was stronger than ever.
Yeah, man, that is incredible.
That's the type of mindset we got to have anytime anything happens. So whenever something negative happens, you got to switch your mindset to being, in learning mode. Number 2, you learn more when you lose. Think about it for a second. Anytime you've ever won anything in your life, whether that's competitively, whether that's in your job, whatever the case may be, what did you really learn from that? And the hard part is, if you win big, let's talk about, athletics. Say you beat a team by 50, what do you really learn when you blow a team out like that? Or if you're in the corporate world or, entrepreneur, if you're so far ahead of everyone in your market and you just keep winning, how do you know what you're doing wrong and how do you get better? So in the grand scheme of things, it really comes down to you learn a lot more when you lose, and no one wants to lose, but it's necessary to win. It's necessary to get where you need to go, because you're not going to accomplish anything by winning. Winning usually hides all the mistakes and the things that you need to work on. And when you're winning, no one's worried about your weaknesses. We all want to think that when we're winning, we're still working on all the things that we did wrong, especially if you're an athlete, whether that's college, high school, little league, intramural. You don't really watch the game film the same way after a win as when you lose. Let me repeat that one more time for the people in the back. After you experience a victory, you watch the game film a lot different compared to if you had lost and experienced defeat. That is 100% true. No one can tell me otherwise. You guys let me know on the Instagram or on the YouTube if you agree with me. Especially any of my former athletes, professional, college, intramurals, rec league, I don't care what it is. When you lose, you know that when you're going to watch that game film, that game tape, or, evaluate your performance, if you're in the corporate world and for my entrepreneurs, you look at everything differently after you lost. One, you're kind of upset and you want to figure out why you lost. So it makes you more hungry compared to when you win. You feel like you're on top of the world. You feel like you don't need to work on anything. And that can introduce complacency. And you don't want to be complacent because, what I'm saying? What 50 Cent say? When you at the top, everybody gunning for your spot. So if you get to the top and you forget what got you there, it's really an easy way to fall off. If you keep winning, that's good. You must be doing something right. But winning over a long period of time can make you forget what it feels like to lose. And I feel like everyone needs that feeling of knowing what it feels like to take a loss, because it makes you hungry to win again. Okay, I really get it. I understand, it's tough for me to tell you on this podcast to want to lose. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you gotta lose, especially in the sense of losing forces you to learn what you did wrong in that loss. Losing forces you to grow. So I'm not going to sit up here on this podcast and act like I'm telling you all to go out and try to take L's and lose. That's not the case. Please do not do that. I'm telling you that when you do lose, you got to understand that the only way you can actually really lose is if you don't learn anything in the process of experiencing whatever happened in your loss. Losing forces you to learn and grow and adapt and overcome, like whole mamba mentality. Like attack everything like Kobe and you'll be straight. That's all you need to do. Just attack it like the mamba. Rest in peace, Kobe. Number 3, everybody loses. It's pretty simple, pretty basic concept, but next time you take a loss, you experience that, I'm not telling you to compare yourself to other people. That's not what we're doing here. It's really, I always say it on the podcast, it's you versus you. I'm only competing with me to become a better version of myself. You should only be competing with you to become a better version of yourself. You should know what your competition is doing, but you're not judging yourself based off of your competition. So what I mean by that is, if you think about losing in the concept of you're losing to your future self because your future self is better than your past self, now you start to really understand it. And, I'm not going to lie on the podcast. If you want to use other people as your motivation and compete against them and be happy when they lose, I don't know what that says about you, but if you want to do it, do whatever works for you. But what I'm saying is you need to understand that everyone is going to lose and it's inevitable. So once you accept that, you can start to reprogram your mind and move forward after losses. So I want to read a quote by Nipsey Hussle. He's somebody to me that, embodies everything about creativity, hard work, and overcoming, everything based on your will and your grind. I actually have the Marathon Continues tatted on my body. So, a lot of people have opinions about tattoos, but it just means so much to me that, the Marathon Continues is such a, let me read the quote by Nipsey Hussle. Let's get into it. So the quote reads, if you're watching this on the YouTube, you guys see that I pulled up my computer. I didn't put the quote in my notes, so I want to make sure I got it right, exactly what Nipsey said. Even as you make progress, you need the discipline to keep from backtracking and sabotaging the progress as it's happening. Nipsey Hussle. I felt like that quote was so appropriate for what we're talking about in the podcast because it really is you versus you. You got to have discipline to keep yourself from losing. Like whatever you're doing in life, athletic, sports, creativity, it's the more disciplined that you can become, the more success you'll guarantee yourself. And discipline starts from within. That starts with you. So, and again, he used the word sabotaging. Most of the times we're sabotaging ourselves. Like Nipsey Hussle was a wise man. Hopefully we can agree on that. Like if you ever catch yourself doing something where you know that you're not doing what you need to be doing, you're not living up to your full potential, you got to look yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, okay, I got to get going. You know what I'm saying? Number 4, ask for help. It's that simple. It doesn't matter what you do. After a loss, I need you to ask for help. I need you to seek out help, whether it's a mentor, a coach, an online class if you're a creative, a podcast, a YouTube episode. Some of those things I mentioned are free. Some of them cost money. It's up to you to decide what you want to do to make sure that you don't lose again. But asking for help can come in so many different forms. Whether, like I said, it can be learning. It can be it can be going to listen to every podcast you can find about the subject. It can be watching YouTube videos to try to figure out how to do whatever you did wrong better. There's so many resources at this time of me recording this podcast in 2023, almost going into 2024, where if you seek out knowledge, you will find it, especially if you're willing to invest in yourself and, pay money for a course or pay money to talk to someone who already did what you're trying to do. Like, I'm not telling y'all to go out here and buy every course. That's not the case. I am making a course, but I ain't gonna plug that right now. But what I'm saying is sometimes people often look for the shortcut to success. I don't think there's any shortcut. I think you have to work hard. I'm almost a decade into it, and I'm just starting to see some success based on all the work I put in, based on all the times that I failed, based on all the pain. But one thing that did help me fast track, my 10-year is knowing the right people, is being around the right people, learning the right materials, watching the right YouTube videos, listening to the right podcasts, I just want to know more and get knowledge. I know that last tip may seem so different, but it's probably the most important, which is why I saved it for last. Sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And the only way to do that is to get out there and network. So for creatives, business people, even athletes, if you get cut from one team and the coach that was coaching you goes to another team and he picks you up and you got a good relationship with him, that can work. Same thing in business. You get fired from one job, you got a homie that goes to another job, tells the boss about you, you get hired to another job. Creativity. You work with one client, they tell another client about how good you were. Like, really, it really does benefit you to have the right people around you and be learning the right things and try to set yourself up to become lucky. That's a thing where that's a whole nother podcast episode is you got to be in the right place at the right time with the right skill set to become lucky. And even if all that goes right for you, you still got to go out there and play your best game and win. Like, you could get all these chances. You can get your dream job, not dream. You could chase your goals and get to the end of your goal and be ready to face that challenge, and you could still lose. So it really is just a battle of like knowing that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters for you is trying to figure out how you get better, take that knowledge that you learn or take those skills that you learn and apply it so that you can win and overcome and ultimately get to whatever goal you're chasing, because got to chase that goal, man. So before I let you guys go, I want you to do me a favor. And if you happen to be listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you consume your podcast, head over to our Instagram at Let's Talk More Do and drop a comment on the video that we post based off of this episode. I want you all to share a story about a time that you experienced a loss and what you learned from it that helped you win in the future. One more time for the people in the back. Once you get to a computer, try to come to our Instagram or go to the YouTube, check out the video. In the comments, share a story about a time that you experienced a loss and what you learned from losing that helped you win, succeed, overcome whatever you need to overcome in the long run. I think if we just do that and start that dialogue in the comments, that alone can be what I was talking about. It's a free resource that, you're not paying money to just go look at other people's comments, to interact, and just to start building communities. This podcast is for creatives, entrepreneurs, and athletes. And at the end of the day, we all want to win, but you got to lose in order to win. And if you want to be a part of a community with people that's trying to do the same things that you are, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a creative, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a podcast host, my Patreon that I'm building out, if you go there right now, there's, over 50 videos. I'm giving everything I know back in that Patreon community. All the secrets, all the tricks, all the tips. If you ever DM'd me and asked me a question and I didn't answer it, I probably answered it in the Patreon. And if you DM me and I didn't get back to you, I get a lot of DMs, I can answer it in the Patreon. So again, it's not a forced thing. You guys don't got to go. But if you're interested in more learning, more resources, and connecting with community, check us out over at Patreon. Before I let y'all go, have a happy new year and make sure you go into this new 2024 not changing, but ready to adapt and get better. I don't want you to say you're going to change yourself and, it is what it is. But just know when you're going into 2024, get your mindset right to become who you're supposed to be. Like, be who you set out to be and chase your greatness. Only you know what that is. I can't tell you what that is. Your husband or wife can't tell you what that is. Your coach can't tell you what that is. Your boss can't tell you what that is. Only you know what you need to be and how great you can be. And like I said, the only way to do that is to push yourself and learn from your losses. Peace. Have a happy new year. See y'all in 2024.